Okay, I'm actually sitting here waiting for my laundry to finish, and so you'll probably see me in the background reflection, but I wanted to show something that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. What I do is I just create a spreadsheet. I go on to Google, to Sheets, and I create a form, and let me get to the top of my form here. You can do it any way you want. You can do it on paper, but I just find spreadsheets so much easier to manipulate. But I start out, this is for the whole year of 2019 for medical expenses, okay? The reason I went back and actually added the days of the week so that it makes it much easier later on tracking when you're going back and forth from the hospital daily, or it's a lot to track. But if you want the deduction on your taxes, it is well worth it. So what I do is I put the day of the week, the date, I don't need the year here. I put the doctor expense. I have Kaiser and I have co-pays that you can see I have really great co-pays. So my doctor co-pay is only $10 depending on what level you have or what medical insurance you have. The next thing I put here is prescriptions, and I just use the RX for me to know that those are my prescriptions. And the next thing I have is food, which really comes into play when you're traveling and once you get to your BMT place. Because you are living away for medical reasons and you have to stay away, I believe half of the food expenses are going to be deduction. Here's my notations, I'll get back to that, and then probably half of the mileage. So this is what I'm tracking to see how this turns out for next year's taxes. So back to the notation is, the reason I put this is right now you can see we went to infusion center at Kaiser Eureka. This is so I know, and I put the addresses for everything, okay, later on. But right now I know because I had done this for last year. I know that the mileage is 24, okay? Now when you get down further, and let me just get to where we go for our first Stanford referral. You can see the expense of the hotel. I have not filled in the mileage yet, so I am behind. But up here, I know these were round trip, and I'd be able to discuss this with an accountant as to the addresses, and this is round trip. However, in an audit, you want to do things properly, and I will go back and correct this. This is just my notations for right now, but I think this is when we get to the actual referral. So you can see over here, March 26th, we leave, we go through the bridge, and I put a double quotations around, or parentheses around this, because this to me is a clue that this is not food, but I have put the expense in that column, and that's $5 at the time for the bridge, for the Oakland Bay Bridge. That was 146 miles to get to Stanford. What I did at that point is I actually recorded my mileage and what car we were using. We were using my husband's car. Now, when you get down here, what you have to do is take your mileage from each place, and then you're going to the next place and to the next place and to the next place. So you can see this was all on one day. This goes, I stopped at McDonald's for some food, not healthy, but I knew that was ending. Zoom Cafe, this was actually coffee over at the hospital. They had a little cafe place set up. Then before we went into the hospital, we went to a brand new place to eat, which was Stanford Shake Shack, which is brand new out here. And then we went home to Atherton Park, which was our hotel, which was $403 for the night. And this shows, actually it was 2 nights, but this shows we had to stay here to take a bone marrow transplant class. So as you see here, I have all the mileage. I don't count any mileage for here because it's basically the hospital location. And then what I start doing is making sure I have all the addresses so I can prove the mileage to the next place and to the next place. Technically what you're supposed to do is keep your running mileage at each of these locations. I have not done that. Every single mile that I take is for the transplant right now. My entire life is dedicated to that. So now I just want to get down here to show you a little bit more. Okay, this is when, and as you can see, I highlight some things here and I say, okay, he was admitted in the hospital here, just so I can give myself a note to think back on. He was admitted, he got chemo, and then they harvested cells 1. This is where he got his harvest of cells from his brother, number 1. This is when he got number 2. So if you come over to here, you can see that he got his cells on different days, okay? And then you can see my expenses at the hospital. This was food. And the reason this is so low is I was staying at an Airbnb, and I will go over that in a different video, that I got to stay at for 2 weeks for free, based on our income and based on a grant. And so I will go over that grant later. But this is, groceries that I stopped to get. And my husband's nephew came out with his dad when he was donating his cells, and this is just my personal notes, so I know, okay, I went to Quality Inn to pick up his brother, took him to the hospital, and then I took his nephew back to the Quality Inn and dropped him off after I got him some groceries, and then I had to go back to the hospital and get his brother again. Meanwhile, I'm staying at the hospital. Okay, so I had to go back to the hospital, pick him up, take him back to his hotel, drop him off so he could rest, and then the end of the night, I actually went back to my Airbnb. So over here, you can see my miles. Everything's very, very close, but all of these miles are a tax deduction. And let's say if you get like 50 some cents on, on the dollar, this really adds up later. These are my personal notes. If I ever was audited and had a question, I could make logical sense. For me, this just really helped me because, as you can see, as I go down further and further, it gets more intense, more intense, more intense, more intense. And it's going to become, look at all these dates, daily, 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 all these trips to all these different locations. Okay, here's one that, let's see, the parking tickets. Okay, so the parking tickets are at the Stanford Hospital are $35 for the week. This is because I was staying in Airbnb, so I had to pay for parking daily to come and stay with him during the day. So you check in and check out with your parking. However, and then once I started sleeping on the cot at the hospital, I still needed a parking ticket. However, when you get out and you start, what you see next is ITA. You will see all these ITA. This is like inpatient treatment area. So when you check in for your appointment, they will give you a parking pass. So you will actually be able to take your parking ticket from when you come in and use the parking pass to pay for all of these. So you can see there's no expenses. So it'd be like about $3, $4, $5, $6 a day, depending how many times you stay, so or how long you stay, depending on what problems you're having that day when you check in for your blood work, and to see how long you need IVs or whatever. So you can see these are all zero, and that's because we requested our free parking passes. Those really add up quickly. Okay. Now, Another thing, I want you to see I got a parking ticket when I went to see my daughter. Now, parking tickets are, I believe, a tax write-off. However, these things, when I went to see my daughter, I actually, and then I went home to check on my youngest daughter, who's at home, going to school and working, and taking care of herself. As you can see, I'm behind on mileage. However, I know my ITA mileage when I get back right away to take my husband's ITA. I know the mileage for that already. So I basically will just go to Google Maps and put in these addresses and put the mileage and just keep tracking it. Okay, however, when I went personally home to see my daughter, these expenses, I just have them recorded, so it just makes sense to me to record them. But I am gonna put a different color, like maybe yellow or whatever, over top of this, so I don't think any of these expenses are gonna be a tax deduction. However, I am keeping them just in case till the end of the year. This one, if I am able to run my small business, for example, this one would count. This is my car wash. My car was toast. It was disgusting because I have not had time to take care of it. So that would be a tax write-off. So it just depends. And of course, you know, what do you have on these receipts here in general. But of course, the ITA. This is me going to see my psychiatrist. This is another thing that, you know, even though I'm at Stanford, I have Kaiser. And I know this is personal information that some people don't feel comfortable sharing, but I'm human and I've had a lot of mental health struggles with everything that I'm going through. And so I emailed my doctor at Kaiser and said, hey, can I go see the local therapist here and talk about everything that's going on and unload some? And he said, absolutely. I went to her and she was flabbergasted. She's like, whew. She was tired when I got done just saying, just in general, what we're going through right now. And so that was a $25 copay for me for an inhaler that I needed, which was a prescription. This was my doctor therapist co-visit, which was $10. So you can see I haven't got the mileage in here yet because I haven't had a chance to look it up, but it's at I do have the address written down. When you look at all your receipts just in general, you're going to see there's usually an address, and if not, you can just put in the general area, Google the address, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's where I went. So that's just something that I wanted to share, that for your taxes, this can get overwhelming quickly. What I do is I throw all my receipts into a Ziploc bag. I have one for when they're done and one, you know, I just keep them on my dresser when they're not done until I get a little handful, then I put them in, and then when I get some time open, I work on this when I get a little bit of time. But you know, this is all a tax write-off, and so this is going to help me later, not right now, but it's going to help me later on prove the insanity that we went through. It's also basically a calendar, so if I needed to look back for any reason on something, this really helps me, and it helps me track what was, if it's anything major like this, I left a check on the house. So this is something I will talk to the accountant, like I said, to find out if any of this is going to be deduction. It may not, but I'm going to go ahead and fill it in. I have it. I can delete it. No big deal if it's, you know, before I finish my taxes. So now the other thing I wanted to share with you is I have, for example, you know, mine and my husband's total mileage here, and I have mom and dad here. One thing I wanted to say is that I am also, in addition, financially, not financially, but I am responsible for my parents' medical well-being. And so if I take them to a doctor, if I take them to the hospital, last year I had this filled in, tons here for my husband, my parents, a brother, and so things that you're like in charge of for the family, and it's legit, you know, that's what you're in charge of, making sure you're going back and forth to the hospital, taking people. You want to keep track of that separately is what I prefer, and then you have it all broken down so that if for some reason, you know, someone fights you on anything on your taxes, you say, okay, well, for sure, that's definitely not a problem, and that's all separate. It's not interweaved with all this other stuff here. But in this situation, I am the responsible for my parents' health, and so I'm the first call and the first one to go out. It's a little different at the moment, as you can see, because there's nothing here right now because I'm not even in the area to help my parents out, and that can be a little difficult, but I just wanted to share that. If you have any questions, please let me know.